Hi, I'm Mike Barnes, and I work with Columbus City Schools in the Office of Performance and Strategic Initiatives, which used to be Evaluation Services. We dumped the evaluation part. We found that people found that word a little frightening. I do wish we'd picked an office name that flowed a little easier off the tongue. You will not hear me pick up the phone and use that office name. But in terms of what we do with research in Columbus, we have a long history of working with the university, sometimes more effectively, sometimes less effectively than other times. We are very interested in promoting research. We're often working with our own staff members and their own professional development because they happen to be the graduate students here at the university who are conducting the research. To echo some of what Mr. DeWitt said, we really are looking for some benefit here, and view our office is taking now in terms of strategic initiatives. I'm sorry, you have to excuse me, I'm just getting over an illness, so I'm sitting here sipping water, spray. We're trying to be much more strategic in our research partnerships with the university and take a much harder look at what research we're promoting. Again, part of it is about benefit to the school district, and in some instances, you guys are in a good position because it's kind of a low bar. We have a shared services agreement with the university and with several of the other districts where when we let you come in and do research, we get some fee waivers for it. So right off the bat, for just saying yes to you, we do see some benefits. We're trying to be a little more strategic in promoting some of the things we're more interested in seeing research on and saying, okay, we can say yes, but if you want to look at some things that we have a shared interest in, not only can we say yes, but we might be able to assist you a little bit more. We might be able to do a little better job in coordinating some things. We might save you some headaches with the IRB because we might be able to collect some of your data for you and de-identify it and pass it off. And that saves you some legal issues. But that's work on our part. So if we're going to do that kind of extra effort in terms of a research project, we really need to be working off the same script as to what we're looking for. It's a work in progress. This past year, we spent a lot of time kind of reviewing our research processes. I know we got some feedback from people at the university that were hard to work with sometimes. I think the thing to keep in mind is maybe you need to allow a little more time to work with us than you would allow for a metro. We do have an organizational process that we do have to go through. So when you ask to do research, I can promise you there's a minimum of 3 people are going to look at your proposal. So I'm going to look at it first to make sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, see that you've been to IRB. If you haven't been to IRB, that you have the necessary stuff in place that you're most likely going to get IRB approval. I'm by no means the IRB review board, but I do know some of the things they're going to look for. I do look for that stuff when I'm reviewing proposals. It's also going to be reviewed by a member of our teachers union. If in any way involves going into a classroom or working with students and or teachers in the building. And what that person really is looking for is, one, benefit to teachers and protection of instructional time. So they're probably not going to sign off on something where you want to take the kid out of their 90-minute reading block twice a week for 3 months. That's just never going to fly. And the union person is going to nix that right away. The third person then that's going to look at it, because I cannot be a content expert in everything that our school district does, I'm going to hand it off to some content expert in our district, whether that's a math curriculum person, whether that's our health services people. We do have the luxury in a large district of having these experts available to us, having licensed healthcare professionals that we can go to and ask their advice on things. In rare cases, we may hand it off to our legal department. We really don't like to say no, though. And that may be part of why it takes so long sometimes, is we really do try and string it along until we get all the pieces in place and can say yes. I've really only been doing this part of this job for a year. And I can say I've only said no once so far. And that was a health study where we were being asked to have our nurses make referrals for students who they thought were suffering from depression. Our nurses are not psychiatrists or psychologists, and we felt that we did not want to have them trying to make that kind of a designation, even though it was just for a referral. We felt it sent the wrong message to the parents. And so we really couldn't come to an agreement on how we could get around that because they really didn't want to change their protocols at all. And And really, in the year that I've been doing this, that's the only thing that we flat out have said no to. So we really are there to try and work with people and get them in and get them on board with the research project. In terms of our own research agenda and things that we would like to see people looking at, that is a work in progress, and we're hoping by the end of the school year to have a pretty comprehensive website up that will have that research agenda on it. But you can probably watch the news and figure out what's on it. So as you watch the information about the third grade reading guarantee and about budget cuts and about the Common Core, you know, we're probably going to be interested in whether it's easier to accelerate kids in reading or in math. We're going to be interested in, can we improve math scores by providing content instruction in reading and mathematics? We're going to be interested in things around cost savings. If people are interested in, you know, school finance, if any of you are Dr. Sweetwood's graduate students. You really can probably watch the news and get a pretty good idea of the things that we're really very hotly interested in right now. But again, we are working on putting that out as a formal document. That website will also eventually include a lot of information about our schools, so you'll have school contact information there. We're going to put out information about school demographics. So if you're looking for specific populations to work with and you're looking for comparable, you know, populations, you can do a little bit of the pre-investigation as to what the demographics of the various buildings are. I would like to put up, we'll see if it happens, what research projects have gone on in those buildings with those principals in the past. Because what you get from me, from my office, is a letter saying we've approved it. What that gives you is a license to then go approach schools. So now you're at the point where you'd be at with Metro. So you've had to go through this whole process to get to the point where you can now approach the school buildings. Because we don't want everybody just going to the school buildings prior to having anything signed off on and use up school administrators' time trying to get approval for things that end up not going anywhere. Again, we're trying to protect the time of the people in the buildings. Typically, the research requests that come in fall into one of three categories. There's either strictly data, where you're just looking for historical data, current data on students, probably de-identified. There are projects with minimal student contact, where maybe you just want to get in and give a written survey to students and collect some new data that we don't currently collect. And then there's those projects where you really want to get into a building and either provide a treatment or interview students. You want to have some substantial contact with students and staff. And so those are the ones really that we have to take a really hard, long look at. I will tell you another thing we're working on with the Ohio Educational Resource Consortium, OERC, with Dr. Howley. We're working on putting a lot of our historical data into a database where they're also collecting things like job and family services data. And we do hope within the next year, when people come with research requests that are strictly data, to be able just to direct them there. And they will have already pretty complete data dictionaries built, and they will be able to much more rapidly than we can right now turn around those requests. So you'll just get permission from us to access it. We'll transmit that permission to them, and they can provide you that data pretty rapidly. You know, whenever you can, it's helpful if you can use the data we already have. And we're not adverse to maybe collecting some of it for you. Again, if that's something we also have an interest in. That requires a little more planning. So let's say we wanted to add 3 or 4 items to our student survey. Well, our planning for that process lasts about 3 months. So we need to be about 4 months ahead of that if we want to talk about making any kind of additions to that document and collect it as part of our regular data collection process. The advantage is we're collecting the data. And that has all kinds of benefits to you. 1, not printing the forms. 2, not having to go to the schools. 3, getting data from all of the schools if you want. And 4, there are IRB savings there where you're not having to worry about your contact with schools at all or with students. So, I mean, that's just kind of a brief overview of how we go through the process. Really, we're looking to protect our students, protect our teachers, and protect instructional time. We really do want to say yes to all the research we can because we think it's all valuable. And as we're moving forward, we're trying to be much more strategic in providing additional support for some of those research projects that we're really interested in right now. So I look forward to the questions. I'm sure there will be plenty of them.